part of that stabilization. And the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime.
That's Secretary of State Marco Rubio outlining President Trump's plan to sell Venezuelan oil. The president secured between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil from Venezuela to America. President Trump posted this on Truth Social, saying Venezuela is going to be purchasing only American-made products with the money that they receive from our new oil deal. These purchases will include, among other things, American agricultural products, American-made medicines, medical devices, and equipment. U.S. forces also seized 2 additional oil tankers yesterday, one in the Caribbean, the other in the North Atlantic. Joining me now, live from Brussels, is the U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. Ambassador, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Your reaction to what's underway here and the reaction that we're seeing from the world to the president's moves in Venezuela.
Well, good morning and Happy New Year. It's good to see you. First of all, the president demonstrates unique American capabilities that nobody else in the world can exercise, and that whether that is what happened in Caracas last weekend, whether that is the interdiction of these vessels on the high seas, and so many other ways that the United States of America is the unmatched world superpower. Now, saying that is, he has emphasized how the first priority of this foreign policy is the Western Hemisphere, to keep our place where we live safe and secure and for our people. And I think this deal that's now taking shape, where we're going to take the oil that is sanctioned, that cannot be sold otherwise, and use it for the benefit of the people of Venezuela, I think is a brilliant idea. Obviously, buying America products enhances our business and our industry, and it's a win-win. And it's, most importantly, it's a win for the people that have long suffered in Venezuela.
Well, look, I always say I love and very much appreciate the president's priority of national security and ensuring that America is safe. And he's doing so on so many levels, from securing the border to ensuring we are making the weapons that we need in a timely fashion, to ensuring that we've got the supply chains in America, while also reining in domestic issues like inflation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to meet with Danish officials next week to discuss the possibility of an acquisition of Greenland. Watch this.
The U.S. intend to buy Greenland. Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there.
And again, this is about national security. President Trump says that acquiring Greenland is for national security purposes, to deter Russia and China out of the Arctic region. Here's the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, yesterday.
The president has been very open and clear with all of you and with the world that he views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like.
So what would that look like, Ambassador? I know that the White House is talking about a monetary acquisition, but also when asked about it, they did not rule out using the military as well.
Yeah, well, first,
how will NATO respond to this?
Yeah. Well, it's I've spent a few minutes this week talking to a lot of our allies on these topics. Arctic security in the high north is crucial to what we do. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is intended to protect the entire North Atlantic region. That includes Greenland, it includes the United States, and it includes Europe, and includes Canada, all with interests in the high north. But let's talk about how Greenland is pivotal to the security of North America and the United States. First, you have the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap, where once submarines from adversaries get into and past that, that's of real concern for the homeland. And that's where Greenland plays a very important role in monitoring that activity. And second, as the ice recedes and we do have, some thawing and passageways open up in the Arctic, obviously the approaches to the United States and North America are more dangerous. And and Greenland, again, continues to play an important role in the monitoring and defense of that. So, you can see why the president has identified this as a crucial issue for the security of the American people. And it's why, he's taking a all the above approach in how he's doing this. And now that Secretary Rubio is involved in negotiating that with Denmark, the security of Greenland and therefore the security of the United States is going to be paramount and on the front page for a lot of us who worry about defending the homeland.
So did you get a sense of timing in terms of when the president would make an offer, a monetary offer to acquire Greenland, and what NATO members think about it?
Well, I mean, obviously there were some NATO members that early this week spoke out, and so they say how they feel about it. And certainly, I'm not going to get ahead of the president on any offer or any negotiation strategy. But I do know with Secretary Rubio meeting with the Danes next week, I think that's a good first step. Obviously, that process is going to be crucial. What we need to do right now here at NATO is take the temperature of this issue down and work on what we can control, and that is the security of the Arctic region. Canada needs to be at the table. The United States obviously needs to be at the table. Denmark and all of the Nordic allies that have interest. Because if you look, and when I was getting confirmed, Maria, I used to walk around with a map of the world from the North Pole. And it's a much different perspective, but it shows you the significant vulnerabilities of North America from that approach.
Amazing. All right, Ambassador, we'll be watching all of this developing story. We so appreciate your time on this. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you again.
Ambassador Matthew Whitaker, you too, sir.